I tell you. Welcome to the Soul Food Book Club here at Enlightened World Network. We're so happy that you joined us, our beautiful family that came together today to discuss a new book. It consists of Christina Leftwich. So glad to have you here with us. And our Auntie Jean.
Hi, everyone.
Mary Lou.
Hi.
Charlie Kuntz.
Hello, everyone.
Brenda Lemieux.
Hi.
And Grace Isis.
Hello.
Thank you all for being here. If someone has the book, would you hold it up? It is Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And this is our first week of delving into this new book. And if you're like me, I started reading and couldn't put it down. I was like, oh my gosh, I just so was ready for the messages. There you go, Jean. Mine's on Kindle too, Jean, so I don't have one to hold up.
Mine too.
But I just love what I'm reading, and it's inspiring a lot of other thought, which is the sign of a good book. When you can read a book and it makes you go off into deeper thought and delving deeper inside, it's really well written and something that you're ready for is what I feel. Like that saying, when the student is ready, the master will appear. And to me, that's always the way that happens. Whenever I'm ready for a lesson, a blessing, whatever it is, that person or that book or that video, it all just shows up for me. So I'm just going to open it up. Who would like to start the discussion today?
My first impression when I was reading it was that it's going to be very exciting to see what her techniques are to help us. And the two things that stayed with me were that she wants us to be happy and we can create our own happiness. And one of the ways that we do that is not getting caught up in what is happening, but how are we responding to what is happening?
Yeah. Go ahead, Linda.
A lot of it is how you think or how you perceive of something. I remember when I went to college graduation, we had to pledge allegiance. And my mother looked at me and said, "You probably won't pledge allegiance. You didn't do it before." And I thought, what the heck is she talking about? And she had the wrong girl. It was my sister who didn't pledge for something. I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." But it never really got cleared till later. But she had been mad at that about me for years, and I didn't even know it.
Oh.
You know, I mean, I didn't know why she had been mad at me. So, you know, that it could clear up a lot of misgivings too. You know, real things you feel, but also things that you perceive to be different.
Yeah, like she says, it's not thinking about the problem. It's not the problem. It's thinking about the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the problem itself that causes it.
Yeah.
And the different, steps you go through to come to that realization that, that's not it. Yeah.
What you said about getting things as you need them. How can I say this? It seems like all of our books are about helping us in some way, And I thought, why are we going to read another self-help book? Can't we read something spiritual that's not, helping ourselves? And then I realized after I started listening to it, because I've got it on audio instead of the book. And I'm wishing I had gotten the book now, which I could still do, but I've got this on audio. Anyway, the other day I was trying to tell my husband's story. It was something that happened to one of the friends, but it was a good story and he wanted to share it with them. And he was fixing to go take a nap. And I was telling him about this. And a little ways into the story, he does this. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone do this. You know,
Yeah, like
come
get
on.
on with it.
Yeah.
Come on, tell me. You know, without telling you the story, they just want you to get to the meat of it and just, you know, so they can go. And it hurt me so bad, you know, and I got so angry. Let's see, this is always my confession time. I got so angry and I just said, never mind. And I stormed into my bedroom, you know. And then he came in and apologized, and I wasn't hearing an apology. No, you know, I said, all the times you tell these long stories, and I listen, and I never go like this to you. And I was just mad. Then I started listening to the book, and I realized the angels give me what I need every single time that I go off the path. They give me something to get me back on. So I'm interested to see how this is going to help me with that kind of an issue, because I do need work in that area. So, and you can get the worksheets. They're on the website.
Oh, good, Jean. What is the
And
website titled?
it's thework.com. Thework.com.
Thank you.
And when you get on that, then they have a area where it says downloads. And that's where you get all the worksheets.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I'm listening to what you said about your situation with your husband and how you need a lot of work, but I'm kind of proud of you that you knew to remove yourself from the situation and you stood up for yourself, because that wasn't a very nice way for him to talk to you. And then you addressed it. So, I mean, I think that's awesome. You know, you might be, you know, thinking that you got a way to go, but you got a good start, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, one thing he did go take his nap. And then when he woke up, he gave me a really beautiful apology. But, you know, I was still angry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I was still angry. And I just didn't acknowledge
sometimes anger works for
apology.
you. Yeah.
You know, I didn't acknowledge it because I didn't feel it was sincere. And that's probably not the way to do it, because he probably was sincere. At least he was sincere in the sense that he hurt my feelings or made me angry. You know, it wasn't. Anyway.
It might open a door, Jean, for you to speak up and tell him how much disrespectful that is of you, for him to do that. It would be an open door once he makes that apology.
That's what it is, the disrespect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all want to be listened to, you know, and part of that is our identity. We want to be valued, that our opinion matters. And I do the same thing. I'm still mad later, but I think it's because of similar circumstances I didn't speak up to before, which was my doing. But once you speak up, it kind of opens the door where you can do it more and more. So good for you.
Well, I'm really interested to see how this is going to work out for me, because the questions are confusing to me. Have you all read into it quite a bit? I've done the first 3 chapters.
Yeah, you got to get past 5 too.
Oh,
You
you
know,
always tell me that, Charlie.
and you'll start.
Well, you got to read first. I guess so, because you know how they answer the questions right now for me is still a little confusing. So I'm gonna hopefully, like you said, by chapter 5, maybe I'll get a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I felt the same way, but I think I'm going to have to actually just sit down and do one, you know, work through it on paper.
Right.
So you have something already to put down.
Right.
See?
Right.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I did it, but I didn't write it down. So, you know, I was going through. So, like, you don't get the whole meaning of everything that's going on. But there's a part in 5 that says, you go through the questions. The one is it true? And then what is the reality of it? And the next one is whose business is it? And it's either mine, yours, or God's business.
Where are you reading that from, Charlie?
And for her, the reality is God. So what's real, what's happening is the God part. So
I loved that part too, Charlie, where and it spoke to me because I think sometimes I take on burdens
right.
with good intention, but it's not mine to be worrying about. Sometimes it's theirs. I can't remember exactly what she referred to, specific things like things in nature. You know, like we wish we didn't have bad storms and things that, you know, when people injustices happen to people, and we wished that, you know, those things didn't happen, but they're not ours to worry about. And that, and you know, and I do question that sometimes within myself, like, well, if we don't worry about it, who will? And it's letting go of that control and trusting and knowing that God is in charge of that. And there is a purpose and there's reason behind it that we don't know. You know, one of my favorite words as I get older is mystery, because, you know, it helps me let go. Oh, well, it's a mystery. You know, that's my way of saying it's God. God is in charge of that. It's not up to me to worry about those things because I can't really fix them. You know, and I think if we are compassionate people, which most of us, you know, in this group right now discussing, I've learned that we are compassionate people. We're caring people. You know, that's why we love the Soul Food Book Club, you know, and we found one another, you know, and I think that for me is an important thing to always go back and remember that, you know, it's not, is it mine? Or is it somebody else's? Or, you know, is it even better God's? You know, that I don't have to put the blame on somebody and I don't have to fix it for somebody. And I tend to want to do that in life, you know, and it's so much better. It gives us that peace that Terry Angel seems to have within herself as our leader. You know, I see that in you so much, Terry. Thank you. You know, because you're always guiding us and directing us, you know, that, you know, to just let God be in charge of that. Yeah, so I liked that message too, Charlie, and I did pick up on that. And she also told us in doing the book, don't worry about it. You know, that each one of us is going to get our own understanding because we're coming from our own place. And she said, you know, maybe you don't even want to write the answers or contemplate them, that, you know, you might find it in just the writing, in the reading of the stories, which I haven't gotten to yet. You know, but I'm looking forward to looking, you know, further in the book and reading the example that the people themselves and see how that touches me too, you know.
For me, Mary Lou,
Go ahead, Charlie.
I watched a master class that she taught. It's on Gaia TV, and it helped me to understand like those questions that the worksheets have us look at. It helped me understand a little more how we're working through the whole concept of what she's teaching us. It's not ours, and how we can look at those thoughts that come through and say, okay, is that true? Or is that just a thought I'm having? Is there any truth to it? And I think that's where we're headed with this, is to really examine what our thoughts are pertaining to everything. And just look at, are we taking on somebody else's burdens? Are we taking on something that's not even ours to take on? So I'm really looking forward to doing the worksheet. And thank you so much, Auntie Jean, for helping us to know where to go to look for those and print them out. And I'll probably have to wait until I get to you.
Yeah, and the videos are there too.
Sessions there.
So you don't need Gaia TV. All the videos are also on YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a subscription to Gaia, you can still see it.
Okay.
Thank you, Christina.
Yep.
Yeah. And she goes into when you go into the reality part, she gives an example of, I think it was Paul. He watches TV 6 or 8 hours a day, and the other one has a problem with that. But that's the reality of it. And just like a dog barks and a cat meow, Paul watches TV 6 or 7 hours, 6 to 8 hours a day. And that's the reality. That's the God part. And then when you go in, well, whose business it is? It's none of your damn business, that's your thinking, that you think that Paul shouldn't be watching the TV. So, just get out of Paul's business, and when you don't think that, it's you're getting out of that hurt feeling,
It'll be interesting.
It goes step by step into the different things,
Or it leads you to make a different choice. Maybe Paul is not the one that you're supposed to be with.
Yeah,
if it's bothering you and if it's interfering with your life in that way. Yeah. So it leads you to make choices.
One of the interesting things she brought up that I'm trying to work my way around is she says you have this part in your brain that tries to make your story, everything that happens to you, it tries to fit it into this story, into this thing that is not necessarily reality. It's something that the brain does to protect you or to help you. And I thought the way the brain works just fascinates me. It just fascinates me. And I think she's right. We tend to justify things according to our story, to what we want to believe. So I'm excited about exploring more of what she's talking about. But I think too, I hope I'm wrong. I think too, sometimes you have to face reality that maybe things are as you are perceiving them. Maybe it isn't that you have to change your mind. Maybe, and I think that's what she's working on. Sometimes maybe you're not wrong. Maybe you have a justification. I don't know. Okay, that's enough of me.
And maybe you have to change the way you handle it or look at it.
Exactly. You're right.
Like your situation, you did something different. You went in the room and thought about it for a few minutes, and he, it worked out more positive. He came in and apologized. So, it's, you may not be able to change it, but at least he can realize it.
Well, and I think we all are, like Mary Lou says, we tend to be fixers. We want to fix everything for everybody. We want peace. That's, I think all my life I've strived for peace because my family life was such a noisy, terrible mess, that all my life I've tried to make peace. But sometimes that's not the right thing to do, but you cover up conflicts, you cover up problems that need to be fixed, and Mary Lou has got the right attitude. You got to start realizing it's not your problem.
I was just quoting what the author said in my own way of quoting, understanding.
Oh, well, it sounded so much like it came from you.
I'm not taking credit. I wished I could, but I think it's a part of me. I do feel that way, a lot of times. But then when it comes down to the reality of dealing with my own circumstances, I'm just like you, Auntie Jean, and I struggle. I find myself like some days wanting the peace at any price. And then I remember that that's not always the right way.
Right,
And,
right.
you know, and then I go and I get determined that I'm going to resolve the situation, and that's not the right way. And then I let go and I say, okay, God, come and help me with this, because I'm not doing it right. And, you know, and lots of times then that's when I get the answer, you know, to back off. And, you know, and again, sometimes just to speak up to that person instead of letting it fester inside of me, instead of, you know, trying to fix it, to go and talk about it. And sometimes that can get resolved better. But I think it's a juggling act that we all deal with, and that we're all good at, you know, at it for a while, and we go back to, you know, being the piece at any price, and then being the one that wants to fix. It's a juggling act that I think we all struggle with, which is
Yeah.
why this book will be great to read.
Yeah. You know, to me, it's like sifting through things. I have to periodically sift through the sand to see what gems I want to leave behind, because I think it's just as easy to say, you know what, this is all somebody else's, or it's all God's, and then to not take on the you part of it. Or it's just as easy to do that as it is to do it the other way. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to get to. And so I think it's good sometimes to tease through those things just a little bit and see, okay, so what is my part that I actually have some control over that might you know, lead to a better outcome in one way or another. And then also, in addition to it, say, okay, so what is God's will, and what is you know, somebody else's burden and things that they have to figure out. I think it's those doing all three of those. You have to kind of sift through all three and give them equal, you know, and it's just easy for any of us at any time to be able to just lean into only one of those three pieces, or maybe only two of those three pieces. And I think that's the human part of us that does that. And like what you were saying with the brain, we do like to categorize. That's what it really is our brains like to just categorize things, because let's face it, much of the time our brains like to be kind of on the lazy side. They wants to find the easiest way. And that's, it sounds negative that I said that, but it's kind of wired like that. It just wants the easiest way. It's efficient in that way. So sometimes in its efficiency, it can get into categorizations and, you know, so, and I think I'm going to like her take on imagination. I'm going to have to, we'll wait till I get there, because I haven't really delved into it too much. And I have to say, I've been doing more watching video than reading. It's just how my life has kind of sorted itself out. I find this fun to read or listen to while I'm going through this whole broken ankle thing. And just, you know, right at the holiday time, I had to give up some things that I had really started to put into play. And they were going to be big, important, nourishing things. And I had to, nope, hey, this is the way it's going to be. And so I find it timely that this book is coming up, because I really do have to sort through, and it's helped me, quite frankly, to actually speak up a little bit more and give myself a little bit more grace than I normally would. And to know that all of those good things that I was planning on doing are still there. As a matter of fact, now I can use them as a goal to reach out, to be able to get to this point, you know, and that can be my goal. It's not gone just because things changed. It just means I have to deal with some things first before I get there.
I'm so glad that you decided to stay on today. I know you were going to hide from us,
I'm glad.
but you always bring such perspective and wisdom to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you for being with us. And I'm that way too. I like to watch the videos. And when I was watching the one that she did, that master class, it just made so much sense. And certain things that I hadn't thought about before. And I'm so looking forward to doing some of those worksheets, Auntie Jean, because I think that's going to bring even more insight and to help me to let go of more thoughts. In the very beginning, she said, a thought is harmless unless we believe it. And that's profound. It's profound because we can do her first question. Is it true? When we have that thought, maybe we're judging somebody or criticizing, and just to step away and saying, is that true? It's huge. This is a huge process that we can learn.
And after it's true, do you absolutely know it's true? You got to go into the deeper, because a lot of time you'll say it's true right away, and then, well, maybe it isn't, you get to that point of questioning, and it comes to you, well, maybe not,
Yes, because your first reaction is, of course it's true, but when you think about it, well, is it absolute?
I have
We
this
could all
adorable
write-
example. Go ahead, Tina. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we could all write stories. Honestly, when I hear people say that they can't, I have no imagination, or I can't come up with a story like that. Oh, yes, we all can, because our brains are the first one to concoct a story, an elaborate one at that.
I have this example. I hope my daughter doesn't mind that I'm putting it on here. I don't think she will, but children teach us so many things in life, and my daughter Trisha posted a little activity at school that Lucas, my grandson, did. He's 7, and they had to. The question was, what would you buy someone for Christmas if it didn't cost it? What would you get for someone for Christmas if it didn't cost any money? And in their house right now, my daughter is stacking firewood for their fireplace. She's going to make more use of the wood rather than other environmental things for their winter heating. And so he's been observing all that. So Lucas wrote, I would get my mommy a log. And he drew a picture of a woman with a nice pink top on, with her arms and legs looking at the fire, and in a comfortable looking chair. And and my daughter said, "Thanks, Lucas." She didn't see the value. She didn't see the value in and of herself at that point, but she posted it, and she loved it, but she wasn't sure she wanted a log, because she's been busy bringing those logs in, and under the porch and in the cellar, and but then the next day she said, I didn't turn the paper over and read that he had also written, the log will keep I know my mommy will like the log because she loves watching the fire. And that brought it to the truth of the matter, and the fullness of what he was trying to say. It's kind of an example of how we look at something and we think a certain way, and then we realize, wait a minute, there's more to this. And I thought that was a good example of, what we've been discussing, that we have a certain thought that's the truth of the matter. And then there's always like the rest of the story sometimes. But I thought that was so precious, and I loved it. I said to her, I loved the story the way you first thought of it, and I loved it even better, when we went into the depth of her loving the fire, to watch the fire, He got it. She didn't get it right away, but then she did.
Sometimes you have to turn the page to get the rest of the story, right, Mary Lou?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you go with the original statement, then you got to go with the proofs, what proves that statement. And then you go through each statement and can that absolutely be true? You go back to the original statement and you'll find how much it's just your thinking and it's not the reality of, yeah, it's really very intriguing how it all works. It's like, when you do the work, it sets you straight. It brings you, out of the loneliness, sadness, depression, or whatever, and it just brings you back to reality, or what is, or how everything is. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. This is being a grandma, but one of my favorite stories is my grandson Harvey calls me Meme. So when he was, I'll say 3, he had a Spider-Man action figure doll that was hard. So he fell on it and he got this big egg on his forehead. So about 5 hours later, I said to him, "Where did your Spider-Man figure go?" And he goes, "Oh, he's in timeout." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because he hit me and I got this thing on my head." And I said, "Harvey, did you ever think you fell on top of him?" And he went, "Oh my, I guess I better go get him." It's the perception that this inanimate doll did something to him. And
Right.
so he's been in timeout for 5 hours. So, so he had to, it changed his thinking. It was something that happened to me, but he didn't do it to be mean. And he didn't need to be punished, So I just love that little story.
That's immaturity, is trying to find the fault with somebody else besides yourself.
Uh-huh.
The object or the person. It couldn't have been that I did it; they did it to me. And and in Spanish they have a saying, se quebró, it broke. Anytime they break something, they don't say I broke it. Se quebró, it broke. There's no responsibility in it. The object itself broke. So, that's just, I guess, a human nature, immature human nature. That's so cute. I think that's so
cute. We do it at all ages, though. I mean,
we do. It's fun.
I still want to know, it can't be my fault, must be somebody else's fault.
Yeah, that, and also going into victimhood. You did this to me. And most of the time we can stop and say, is that true? Did that person do that to me? Or did they do something and I took it personally and allowed it to affect me in that way to become a victim?
Well, and sometimes they do. That's why we have courts of law.
Sometimes they do. You're right.
Right. That's why we have courts of law. At some point, we do have to make that. And that's the you part. There's a me, there's a you, and there's a God. And I like that she included that there's a me, a you, and a God. Yes. Because there are some things, again, you just go, that person might have some things going on that I'm not aware of. And that, and not maybe take it personally. If you can, somebody beats me up on the street, I'm going to take it personally. Well, yeah, if somebody sexually assaults my daughter, I'm going to take it very personally, that kind of thing. But like I said, that's where she's opened up, where I've read other things where there's no possibility that it could be anybody else's fault or responsibility in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that's true either. I think that's just as extreme as saying, there's extremes. But this is what I like about this particular writer is she has opened up the possibility that in some cases, in some situations, maybe even most situations, there will be a component of you, me, and God. It's possible.
Hmm.
I like
Does
the
that
way
make
you put that.
Or am
Yeah,
I
it
just,
does.
does that
No,
make any
I
sense, or am I just
no.
Yeah.
okay?
I like I like the way you said it, Christina, and thank you for coming on and welcome and glad you're healing on the mending path. I like the way you put it because yes, she does say that she can find only 3 kinds of businesses in the universe. I'm reading word for word. Mine, yours, and God's. And for me, reality is God. Then there are the questions of whose business are you in when you're thinking the thoughts that you've written. I'm being transported back to my tradition and from the part of the world where I come from. And I'm also resonating with the indigenous peoples, but I'm resonating more with the way life used to be in the olden days, in our grandparents' times and beyond. I feel today there's so much that's coming to us. There's so much that we're being fed that we don't have the time to be selective, which we can. And she's teaching us that sometimes perhaps you're supposed to just stop, watch what you're feeding yourself, as in what you're reading, which is part of your thoughts. Watch what you're saying, watch what you're interpreting, and watch how far you're getting away from your center. Because she does mention the, what's it called? She says, reality for me is what is true. The truth is whatever is in front of you. Whatever is reality happening, the shoulds and shouldn'ts. But she also mentions about the level, the carpenter's level. I don't know, I'm sure all of you have seen it. That when that bubble is not in the middle, that's your mind, those are your thoughts, it's your reality. Then you start wandering off. And perhaps she's trying to tell us that there are times when we need to slow down and really ask, is that mine? And I really like that she's bringing us back to the source, to our source. In these other parts, I go, when I was home in Kenya, I went back into the countryside, and their life is still simple. It's still, my neighbor came to me and he didn't have any potatoes, and I had some here. Here you are, potatoes. You see, but nowadays there's always some some thought of, or why did they come to me? Or I can't go to them to ask them. They can't know that I don't have potatoes. I think that's what she's telling us. And I do really, really like the first, these aspects of these questions and what I'm reading. So I'll go off the air. Thank you.
I think too, besides just changing one thought, it might change a pattern. Like, why is everybody always picking on me? Once you realize the truth of it, all the other things fall away. The next time someone's picking on you, or your perception of it, you'll have a different response possibly. So it can break a chain of thoughts, and it can also change a pattern if you're ready to open to it.
And I always go back to Ali O'Shea's statement. A belief is just a thought you keep on thinking. So once you can stop that stinking thinking and get out of the victimhood mentality and go into what this author is teaching us, to really look at it and observe it and find out, is there any validity to it? Or is that a thought I've just kept on thinking? And so that's what keeps appearing for me in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah, good point.
once you investigate, like, you get the answer for yourself. And once you see the cause and the effect of the thought, you turn it around, and you're not in that thought, that thought doesn't exist. It's not the reality, what's real. It's actually very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
One place that I can see this being so powerful is when we have some insecurities and we start going into that thought process of I can't, and then turning that around and saying, is that true? Is it true that I can't? And there are some things that maybe you can't do physically, emotionally, but to just start saying those words, that's a habit for many, many people.
Right.
To just use that as your excuse. I can't. And so really, if you go with this book and really study it to the point of it's going to make a difference in your life, then you'll start looking, and every time you start to say those words, it's like, oh, wait a minute, is that true?
Right. And she even does an example like of a level, like raining, like it's raining outside, but it shouldn't be raining, and it's tipped the level, it shouldn't be raining, and then it should be raining, but the reality is, oh, now it's level. That's what the reality is. It's raining outside, and just get in the now and what is real, she gives very good examples, and and she explains it pretty well. But like, you got to get the worksheet, though. I think we all have to, because if you do it in your head, you can see what's happening, but doing it step by step and trying to learn something when it's like trying to go to school and the teacher's teaching you something and you don't write it down and go through the exercise, you're not going to get the full power of what's really happening. So I'm going to have to go print out some of them worksheets.
And they're interesting. Beautiful tank, Christina. Isn't that beautiful?
That's all my kids. This is my kid's tank. He does it, and I get to watch it and enjoy it.
How big is that, Christina?
75 gallon.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work on it. Has it all self-contained in its own, with the real plants, and yeah, I love it. I'm like, this is my rehab tank that I can watch.
I remember when you were telling us he was starting it and thinking about what he was going to use and everything.
Yep.
Lovely.
Tell him we said that he did a great job.
I will tell him that. Yes, I will tell him that.
Thank you for sharing it.
I used to have a tank, but it got to be too much for me to try to clean it. So, but I think he's got it set up so it's self.
Exactly. He hasn't cleaned it since. Well, he'll occasionally take like a couple gallons of water out and then replace it, but like not anything more than that. It's just basically doing its own thing. Yeah.
That's the beauty of the bigger tanks. That's all you have to do.
I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a blue beta in there. There it is. There he is. And he lives in peace with the other fish.
Yeah.
Wow.
They only fight with each other. I used to have a beta in mine too.
I didn't think they could live with any other fish.
Oh, they can.
Depends
They
on
are.
what they are. There's some fish that will attack them because they're attracted to the movement of the tail.
Yeah, the more like ornate their tail, probably. Yeah.
They like to nibble on it.
But my son said he went up to each one of them when he went to go shop for it. He said his test was he would put his finger up in front of their tank or their whatever, and that if they tried, some of them would flare right up, and so those were like immediately eliminated. He's like, nope, you're done, you're already flaring. And then he went from there and tried to narrow down which ones were going to be more peaceful. He's gotten two of them now that have been like that. So I'm going to say that his method is pretty good.
Very smart kids you got there.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could do that to people? Just put our finger up and see who flares up.
Who bites it or who does it? Right, exactly. See
Be careful how you put your finger up, Jean.
Oh, well, that's true.
Well,
Which one you
you
use may matter.
could look and you could see. You could tell people by,
Yeah. We use our intuition.
Yeah. Yeah, you could.
This has certainly been an interesting discussion today. Linda, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
I had two thoughts. When I got hired by my favorite principal, I worked there 25 years. And when I came in, he said, I don't know the first thing about special ed. So these two ladies can ask you the questions. And he said, I'm going to assume you're a good teacher. I need you to get along with everybody else. Hardly anyone ever leaves because it's such a wonderful place to work. And the first requirement is you have to get along. So I said, okay, that's good. So that was my other thought was all this talk is for some reason the caretakers come to mind because it's day in and day out. And a lot of times they don't get any support and they lose their perspective and their identity sometimes with the other person is demanding and what's this and what's that. And they don't have time to sort things out. Can you tell I've been there? So, and you keep thinking, why is this happening to me? And why is she doing this? And why is she doing that? And it's just the way it is. But you get kind of in a cloud. So this would be good reading for anybody in a situation like that, where they're taking care of somebody else.
Yeah, because I think you're right, Linda. It makes you step out of your natural perspective. And let's face it, anytime we're encouraged to do that, usually we do, our brains are capable of seeing a really big picture. And we just have to kind of prod it. And so I think that does, anytime we change our perspective just a little bit, that's a little bit broader of an outlook we can get.
Yeah.
And you're right, being a caregiver, there's just some circumstances that it's easier to get into that. Yeah. And caregiving is definitely one that does that.
And then you feel guilty, you're feeling that way.
Yeah, right.
But it's a natural response.
Do you think that the author is also telling us that when we come into these aspects or these circumstances or situations, that we also need to remember or stop and ask, is this, how do you bring in that third element, God, in there? It's like Terry tells us this is maybe a little more details to Terry's stay in your lane, which really, which at the end of the day, that maybe that's what we're being told to do. But then if you really cannot stay in your lane, like in Paul's, the Paul situation that he's smoking, or what is it? Is this how she's telling us? And perhaps maybe she'll reveal it to us as the book goes on, as we go deeper into the book. I think that, you need to come up with a mechanism of bringing God into the picture as often as needed, and every day and every time, and not getting that fear aspect. What are your thoughts about that, Terry or anybody?
Yeah, I think the more we can be God-centered and recognize that we're all a spark of God, we're all a spark of the divine. And so when we are interacting with others in this lifetime that we've chosen to come into, we chose to be here on purpose. We chose to learn certain lessons. So everyone that we're interacting with is a part of that lesson. It's a part of what we're here learning. And it's also an opportunity for us to shine the light that we came here to shine. So when we start to examine, okay, what is my responsibility in this? Is there to the fact that I even have a responsibility to do anything? Or am I here just to learn that lesson for me? That person's learning their own lesson. They're in their lane. They're happy. They're sitting there watching TV 12 hours a day. That's their way that they're experiencing life right now. We have to learn, okay, what's the best way for me to experience my life right now? How can I be happy in my lane? And do I have any responsibility to interact with somebody else and just to shine our light and to pray for them?
Yeah. The one
That's how we bring God into it.
The one
Charlie?
question at the end.
Yes.
Who would you be without that thought? And like, if you didn't have that thought that was making you so depressed, saddened, or whatever, you'd be happy and joyous, and just you got to let go of that thought. It's not there. It's only a thought. It's not real. It's not reality. It's not what's true. When you get to the last question and you go through the work, it really comes to fruition, I guess the word is. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Is that the page where it says when you think that it's true? Is that what you're talking about?
No,
Right at the end?
It's on 95. Who would you be without that thought?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't really
I
see
just
my.
read like the first hour, first sentence or two, and yeah, I just got started at 90 today, I think.
Mhm.
I was reading when I took my daughter to the eye doctor.
Yeah.
Grace Isis, I love that you brought that thought to us about keeping, God is our center. And I was influenced at one point in my life, and I remember doing it, and I may have lost it. And I'm being reminded that when you have a troubling thought or circumstance, this person used to say to me, ask yourself, where is God in this?
Mhm.
Where is God in this? And if God isn't in the center, is that even a fruitful, like Charlie was saying, well, what good is that thought? What is there truth in that thought? So it's another short way of, keeping the center, keeping ourselves centered. Where is God in this?
Thank you, Mary Lou. Yes, that's right.
Well, to me, kind of, God is our center, or it should be. It's like, well, maybe nobody else feels this way, but it's like, to me, it's like you're living inside of God, or His Spirit is surrounding you. So whatever you do, He's part of it. He's part, like the other day when I lost my temper, you know, a lot of times I go and I say, I'm sorry, God, I shouldn't have done that, because I feel like I've disappointed him in some way. And so sometimes, I don't know, I just don't know how to explain it right. But it's like you're walking in spirit. And so what you do, God is always part of it. That's the way it seems to me. But doesn't mean that things don't happen to you. They do. And it doesn't mean you're not human and you get upset, because you do. but he's always there. But I know everybody doesn't live that way. I mean, I know everybody doesn't feel that. So I'm with Gracie. How do you explain that to people? How do you, or it doesn't really matter if we explain it to people as long as we accept it ourselves.
Oh,
Right.
Not about others. And I think
That's
that's
right.
a huge
That's
teaching.
that
Yes.
that's their problem.
Yeah, yeah.
It's you.
Their lane, Jean.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah,
And,
you're right.
you know, that's their you know,
Yeah.
that's their thing. Everyone has their own thing.
As much as you want them to have that, you can't do anything about it. That's something that has to come from them.
You
From
know,
within,
Their connection
from within
to
that
divine.
person. Yeah.
and for some reason, for some people, their spirituality or thoughts of spirituality would be much different than mine. And so what would give me comfort might not give somebody else comfort. They have other
That's
things
true.
to do. So, and that,
You're right,
you
Christine.
know, it's part of the mind, body, spirit kind of a thing.
Mhm.
It's a spiritual, making sure that you nourish that side, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
I feel the author. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Linda. Sorry. I sorry, guys. I feel the author is also giving us a tool here that we've kind of put aside, the tool of journaling, of writing, because that's what she's saying here. Sometimes you may not feel comfortable with your yes to questions 1 and 2, but she says you want to go deeper, but the statements you've written. So in my childhood and in my life, I've always kept a diary. Sometimes, and I write so small, so I sometimes don't even want to look at those diaries because I'm like, this writing is so tiny and I need a magnifying glass. But it helps, and it has helped me to be a little more discerning, to go back and write, as Auntie Jean said, to say sorry to God, to process, because each and every situation is for us to learn about ourselves. You learn what triggers you. You're like, okay, next time I know. Where I am right now, there's Raymond who's still, missing his mother, and he's the only one left in the world. And there are moments of explosions, but I have to realize they're coming from a point of fear. And I'm thankful for that discerning ability that I have. The lady that I'm working with now, she's all over the place, but it's because of a lot of fear, extremely creative. But I have learned to keep out of the way, keep a steady, even bubble, as we're being shown here by the author, and to realize it's their journey. And I have to ask myself, am I needed to go in further? Is this, these shoulds and shouldn'ts we don't think about, don't have those thoughts. Your mind, it's so important. And she's saying that's what she's teaching us here, is to go back into the writing. Write your question down. And she says here that, she says, there are some ways to coax your thoughts out into the open. Nowadays, we're learning to talk about them. We're learning to read other people's books, because that's what she's done with this book, to prompt new statements that can allow inquiry to go deeper. And she says things like, and it means that dash. A powerful way of prompting yourself is to add, and it means that. That's going to help us to your original statement. Your suffering may be caused by a thought that interprets what happened rather than the thought you wrote down. This additional phrase prompts you to reveal your interpretation of the fact. You see, and she goes into that example of, let's say you wrote, I am angry at my father because he hit me. Is it true? Yes, you are angry. And yes, he did hit you. Because as she says, the reality is in front of us. Many times when you were a child, try writing the statement with your added interpretation. I am angry at my father because he hit me. And it means that dash. Maybe you would finish this statement with, and it means that he doesn't love me. She's prompting us. It's an interesting book, and it's right on schedule, I believe, for where we are at this moment on our journeys and in the world.
Thank you, Gracie. And I certainly agree with you on that one. And speaking of schedules, we are over time.
Oh, no.
I am so looking forward to our discussions every week on this book. I think this is going to be so helpful for many of us. And we had a few people come into the audience to listen. And Kathy Hand was here with us today. And she said, I don't know if I have another time for another, quote, lesson book, but I think this is more than a lesson book. I think this is going to give us tools for living our life in a huge way to start thinking about our thoughts and the thought process and looking at it as an observer. So I'm excited about it. And I think it's a little different from some of the ones we've studied in the past where, we were journaling and doing a lot. And you can journal with this book, just like what Gracie was just talking about. But I think more than that, it's a book that's going to help us go deeper in our thoughts. So thank you all. Thank you for being here, those online, those here in the Zoom room. I love you so much. This has been a very interesting discussion today. And we'll be back next week and we'll do it again. Thank you all for being here. And hopefully next week I will be with our Auntie Jean to do the book club together. That's my hope. Yeah. All right. So we're going to leave everybody with blessings for a good day and
Namaste.
bye, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody.